Long we've prayed with anticipation, but suddenly there is a light in the darkness. It's shining in Bethlehem.
This is the moment, this is the night. Sing choirs of angels, glory to God. There's peace on the earth, there's joy to the world. The Savior is come down, heaven is here.
Behold the Redeemer, the God of the ages. Behold the Messiah, mighty to save us. Oh, everyone see, there's a light in the darkness, it's shining in Bethlehem.
This is the moment, this is the night. Sing choir of angels, glory to God. There's peace on the earth, joy to the world. The Savior is come down. This is the moment, this is the night. Sing choir of angels, glory to God. There's peace on the earth, there's joy to the world. The Savior is come down. Oh, glory and honor be unto the King. Worship the King. We bow down before Him. We worship the King. We worship the King. Oh, glory and honor be unto the King. Worship the King. We bow down before Him. Worship the King. Worship the King. This is the moment. This is the night. Sing choir of angels. Glory to God. There's peace on the earth and joy to the world. The Savior is come down. This is the moment. This is the night. Sing choir of angels. Glory to God. There's peace on the earth. There's joy to the world. The Savior is come down. Heaven is here. Heaven is here. Heaven is here. Heaven is here. Heaven is And all the earth will shout your praise. Our hearts will cry, these bones will sing. Great are you, Lord. And all the earth will shout your praise. Our hearts will cry, these bones will sing. Great are you, Lord. And all the earth will shout your praise. Our hearts will cry, these bones will sing. Great are you,
Well, it's that time of the year. We've already had a few dustings of snow, and I'm reminded of the awe and wonder this season brings every year, especially when I drive down my street and I see houses lined up with different colors and arrangements of lights. Have you ever stopped to consider that it's the darkness that brings out the beauty of those lights? It's when the night is darkest that we can really see the light of even a single candle. And a single candle in the window whispers something. It whispers welcome, that there's hope here. A single candle reminds us God is sending his light into the darkness. It reminds us that there is no darkness in our lives that can't be lit up by this special light. This light is a person, and his name is Jesus. And we're going to be celebrating the birth of Jesus, the light of the world, both in person and online starting December 23rd. Tickets are available for in-person services, so please reserve some seats for you and your friends and your family that are planning to attend. And of course, to ensure safety and physical distancing, tickets are going to be limited. We know that many of you will be watching from home this year, so we're creating an online-only exclusive service made just for you. To create the most memorable and meaningful service, we have a Christmas at-home kits available for you to pick up at your campuses. In those kits, there'll be candles for the family, the world's best hot cocoa. I have no idea where we found the world's best hot cocoa, but we have it. A star ornament craft and many things for the family will be included in these kits. So please reserve your kit and find more information about online services as well to reserve your tickets. And you can do that right at kensingtonchurch.org/Christmas. The theme for this year is fitting in so many ways. It's called Home for Christmas. We'll be looking at the Christmas story through the eyes of the wise men, the Magi, who came one way, but then they left another. And no matter where you're watching Christmas services from this year, either in person or online, we truly believe that you will encounter Jesus. That's why we do this. We want people to encounter the light of the world, just as the wise men did. And guess what? When they did, it changed everything. It'll be nostalgic and beautiful. Maybe it'll be a little bit like this clip from Christmas at Kensington in 2012. Man, there's something about looking back at the past with fresh eyes. Today kicks off a brand new series that we're calling Foundations, and I'm super excited about this series because together we're going to explore the beginnings of Kensington, the way that God grew and shaped this community, and we're going to be hearing from each of the founding couples. And today we're going to kick it off with Mark and Callie Nelson. You know, Mark and Callie have a very, very special place in my heart, in my wife Amy and our family. Mark really took a chance with me almost 20 years ago where he hired me to come on staff, and I was so new in my faith. I look back now and I cannot believe that he actually did that. But he brought me on staff and he walked with me and really did disciple me and train me in the ways of arts, in the ways of church, and more importantly, in the ways of Jesus. So I just owe so much to Mark and Callie, and I'm so grateful that you get to hear from them today. So sit back, really take in what God is going to do today. Thank you for joining us.
Hey, welcome Kensington, Birmingham. It is so great to be here with you. I'm so excited about this series called Foundations, but before I jump into that, I just want to talk about Christmas here for our Birmingham campus. You know, as you heard in the video just before me, you heard about our Christmas services, and right now you know that we're not in person right now, we're just live streaming, and as we're in this season of live streaming, one of the things that I want to let you know about is that what we have done is we have rented out the Imagine Theater so that we can watch that digital digital experience on the big screen together. And so we want to invite you out. If you are comfortable with joining us at the Imagine Theater on Christmas Eve for 2 of our services, it will be an incredible time together that we get to experience Christmas as a community. And so we're looking forward to that. Now, today we are in this series called Foundations, and we're going to look at, over the next 3 weeks, 3 of our founding families and their stories of how they shaped this community, how they heard from God, and how they stepped out in faith. And today we're talking about Mark Nelson. Now, you may not know Mark Nelson, but I want to tell you a little bit about him. He was the visionary point leader for our arts for over 25 years. For over 25 years, he helped shape that community, and we're so thankful for him and the ways that he led us. And one of my favorite quotes that just kind of speaks to the power of art is from Dan Allender. This author, speaker, and therapist, he said this: art and music can speak to the graves of the human heart and soul that are the spoken word cannot reach. See, sometimes we recognize beauty. We recognize the beauty of a moment through art. You know, as I was traveling a couple years ago with Steve Andrews, I remember as we're walking through Israel, you know that saying, like, stop and smell the roses, stop and smell the flowers that are around you? Steve didn't just stop and smell every flower. He stopped and took a picture of their complexity and yet simplicity. But what he would do every single time he would see this picture of a flower, he'd go, I want you to see this. I want you to see how beautiful it is. Because there's something that happens in our hearts when we embrace a moment where we know that God can take a moment, just one moment, to move our hearts, to move our souls, to move us in a way that leads us to believe that there's something powerful, significant, beautiful in the world, and that we get to be a part of it. And the reason why I think God does that, even with the simple and complex creations like a flower, is because he wants to speak to our hearts, because the creativity of a creative God is instilled deep within our souls. Look what it says in Psalm 19. The heavens declare the glory of God. The skies proclaim the work of his hands. Day after day they pour forth speech. Night after night they reveal knowledge. They have no speech. They use no words. No sound is heard from them. Yet their voice goes out into all of the earth. Their words to the ends of the world. And in the heavens, God has pitched a tent for the sun. It rises at one end of the heavens and makes its circuit to the other. Nothing is deprived of its warmth. There's something so powerful about creation because it reflects the creative God who loves us, who cares about us. And at the very beginning of Kensington, one of the heartbeats of our community was that we could create moments, space, where God can move in people's hearts, where it can move a person who is maybe disengaged, disenfranchised, hurt by the church, hurt by people, hurt by the life that we live. And it would move in their hearts in a way that it would break their bitterness, break their frustration. See, we'd create these moments that would transcend everything in the noise of the world that was going on, and it would speak to the very heart of an individual. And so what's so beautiful about that is we would ask this question: could we capture or create a moment that would move the hearts of people and move it in a way that would cause a transformation in their family, cause a transformation in their souls, cause a transformation in their world? And it would be done with this moment of beauty, authenticity, because it would reveal what the creative God has put within us, this authentic place where he speaks to our hearts. And so one of the things that we have always believed that Mark Nelson instilled as a leader of our community is that we would be a part of moments like this. We would dream and ask God, how could we step out into the world and lead, whether it was in our services, but even beyond that, into our relationships, into our communities, into the next generations, and go, how would you allow us to create moments, space, so that God could move in the hearts of people? Space that would point to a creator, space that would point to Jesus, whose servant-hearted, sacrificial, grace-filled love would transform hearts. And that's our heart that we gathered from Mark and that we share within our community. So one of the things that we're going to do today is we're going to sit down with Mark and hear his story, hear the ways that God crafted this within him and how it unfolded within Kensington. But before we do that, we're going to take a moment and receive our offering. Now, one of the things that we started last week is something we are calling Hope for the Holidays. And we know one of our ministries that is called our Help Bank. We receive phone calls where people are just navigating the difficulty of 2020. And we wanted to step out as a church and say, how can we be the church in this season? So we want to invite you, if you're in a moment of struggle, if you're in a moment where financially you need support, to text the word hope to this number that is found on our screen. And this number will allow you to experience what God is doing in this community. Now, why we're doing this is because we believe that as a community, we can be generous. That we can be generous with not only our finances, but also with our prayers. One of the things that has been happening as we've been doing this is people have been reaching out saying, how can I receive prayer in this season? How can I experience just somebody connecting with me? And that has been a byproduct of this hope for the holidays. But why we do this is because you as a community, you are a part of this. You are a part of this community. When you give, you're a part of these stories where we're stepping out to be the church. And this is why we invite you to partner with us here at Kensington, because we want to see transformation happen not only globally, but locally in our communities. You know, when you give, whether it's through any of the ways that you can do that, online, through text, through the website, all those different opportunities for the offering to happen. While you give, one of the beautiful things that we can do is we can be part of stories. Stories that are happening in Nepal where people are being rescued from trafficking. Stories where clean water is being delivered to the Pokot. Stories of this community where we're moving out into the world. And so I invite you to be a part of that with us. Invite you to give as you're a part of this community and believing that God will do something incredible. So as we lean in to Mark and Callie's story, I want you to kind of wrestle with this question. What is God sparking in me? What are the moments I get to be a part of to create space for God to move?
I remember as like a teenager, not sleeping well at night, being concerned or worried, but I had a relationship that was very private with God. Never talked with anybody else about it, but it was real. And quite often I would get up middle of the night, 2 a.m, and go walking down our long driveway to Coulter Road. And I remember praying, just talking with God, and tears running down my face. I remember seeing stars through the tree canopy. I would sing "How Great Thou Art" because I knew that song from going to church, and that's how I felt. I was just amazed, just an immense love for beauty, the power of creation, the wonder of it. And I think I kind of developed that childlike heart. The first time I actually felt something deeply from art was actually when I was a freshman in high school. My mom, she made me play in the band. And I was terrible. I mean, I did audition. Everybody had to audition. And I got last chair trumpet, just a total embarrassment. But the guy that was the director that year, his name was Joe Dobus, University of Michigan graduate, rookie teacher, came in, and he was convinced that music was the greatest thing ever. And that it wasn't about playing notes, but it was about getting to feel it, to create an emotional expression that was meaningful. We're all just like, yeah, whatever, dude. We were terrible. We didn't know what he was talking about. Everybody was screwing around, and it was just a mess. But over that year, he kept at it, and he worked really, really hard. And I remember the day that actually this podunk group of kids playing, and actually we did something that was really beautiful and moving. Like expressive, and it was in tune, and it actually sounded good for the first time. And I remember everybody just I remember looking around, and everybody's like, oh, what the heck was that? And from that moment on, he kind of had our attention a little bit. And over about a 3-year period through high school, he developed a program where a great number of kids were getting, they were going to the big universities on music scholarships and stuff out of Lapeer, Michigan. My bar for excellence in all things, I didn't even realize it had happened, but I would compare Joe Dobus as a teacher to my football coach and to my biology teacher and anything else that I was kind of evaluating. So I went to college as a music major and ended up teaching my first year out at Oakland Christian School. What was interesting is the very first time I was troubled by the fact that it looked like if you were a follower of Jesus, if you're a Christian, that you had to kind of make a choice to be in a lesser camp But if you were going to be really good, you couldn't really stay in that camp. You had to kind of go to the secular university and pursue this, because that's where the really great stuff was. And it's kind of made me mad. And I read a book by Francis Schaeffer's son, and it was called Addicted to Mediocrity. And I didn't read books very much at all, but that book helped me kind of put language to what I was feeling. And it was saying, why have we allowed the church and Christianity to be a place where it's just kind of mediocre at best, but the really good stuff is reserved for people and artists outside the church? And that just never went away. And so when I got to Oakland Christian, I think I tried to be Joe Dobas, wasn't very good at it. But I really was trying to help my kids sense what I had sensed, this something that was worth being a part of, worth listening to, that would move my heart deeply, And over years of, wanting to kill the kids and the kids wanting to kill me, we kind of got there, and began to experience expressing things that were really powerful. Now, what happened is when I met my wife, Callie, we started it was like a sing and dance kind of a thing. And in a Christian school back in the 80s, that was not allowed. But what happened is the kids were really gifted. It wasn't anything we did. They were super gifted as musicians and so forth. And they were able to communicate things so powerfully. And we would travel to churches. Surprisingly enough, this kind of secular type thing was moving people in church. Callie and I were married in 1985. And in 1986, we started attending this new church, and it was called Faith Church in Rochester. And lo and behold, a few months into that, this guy named Steve Andrews took a job there as an associate pastor at Faith Church. And but the neat part about him coming was that he had the charge and the permission both to plant a church, and it was supposed to be within 3 to 5 years. And so I'm like, wow, is this a real thing? People do this, And then shortly after that, Dave Wilson came from the University of Nebraska to become the chaplain for the Detroit Lions here in Detroit. He lands there. Somebody told him about this little church start in Rochester Hills, and so he came and ended up there. And so within a period less than a year, all three of us ended up at Faith Church.
When I first saw Mark and Dave and Callie, Ann wasn't on the stage, but they were up leading the praise music before the beginning of the service at Faith Church. We weren't allowed to do praise music in the service. And they're up there, and Dave's kind of got a mostly comb over, and he's playing guitar, and Mark was up there singing. And I had two impressions. One is that Mark had about the most beautiful voice that I'd ever heard anybody at that time. Such a beautiful singing voice. And he and Callie together were angelic. But I didn't realize that he was a star quarterback for Lapeer High School, that he had all these other gifts. And of course, in meeting Dave, I didn't realize that both of these guys, we all three were quarterbacks, only they were good. Both those guys were actually good. And so we started hanging out and playing basketball and working out. And what we found is that we all had the same passion, which was for our generation to meet Jesus. We all had great experiences with Jesus and bad experiences with church.
When it comes to my role in Kensington, it's kind of strange that it actually happened for me, because I didn't like church. I didn't really want anything to do with it. I loved Jesus, but I just didn't enjoy church, and it was never meaningful to me. And so Steve came to me one day and said, hey, I would love for you to consider being part of starting a new church with me, a church for the unchurched, people that don't like church. And I'm like, dude, you're coming to the wrong person. I'm not interested. He's like, okay, I know you won't do it, but would you just do this for me? Would you just take a trip across the country and visit a couple places? So he wanted to take me to Saddleback Valley Church, which was Rick Warren's church out in Southern California, and then a couple others out in California, and then on our way back, stop at Willow Creek Church in Chicago. On the West Coast, it was interesting, I enjoyed it, but it didn't resonate. But when I got to Willow Creek Church and saw something that was so powerful that used different methods of reaching people. So that back then it was drama, video didn't really exist, but music that was written from a real life standpoint, portraying people as real people, connecting with a God who loved them as they were. And it was done really, really well. Like, it was very moving to me. I looked at Steve and I said, is that what you're talking about doing? Because I didn't get it. And I said, if that's it, I think I could do that.
I want to welcome you to Kensington Community Church. It's perfect for today's modern family. It's called Video Dad.
Video Dad?
Video Dad?
After a few years into Kensington, we came up with a mission statement for the arts, and it was to create moments for people to engage with God. And we thought about it a long time, like, what is it that we actually are trying to do? And because we know that, and we knew that we couldn't transform the heart. That's the work of Jesus alone. So we weren't in the business of transformation. That's him. What were we in the business of? And I felt like God, for that moment, called us to create these moments and create a space where people could slow down enough to even be in a posture where they could hear what God was doing, what he was inviting them to be a part of, what he was inviting them to feel about the reality of their life.
The spoken word is one thing, a sermon is powerful, but sometimes it's a drama skit that's so relatable, or an artistic moment that's so beautiful or so powerful or so emotional, it cuts right in, and it does something you can't do with a spoken word. And so we wanted to use all of that to say, could we take people on a journey, especially people that don't believe God is relevant to their lives, watch the Spirit of God lead them to himself, and arts and the powerful preaching of the living Word of God would all be a big part of that.
I feel like God called us to help people see that these dichotomies that were in their minds of secular life, just my life, my business life, my family life, and then I've got this church thing over here that I do with God. And they're supposed to coexist. They're supposed to be together. And so I think that's what we had the privilege of doing, was actually connecting with the thing that people cared about the most in a context where they could actually feel it and almost admit it to themselves, maybe for a first time, and then have a presentation of a loving God without judgment, embracing them and loving them in that space.
And every time I go for a promotion and you give me the laundry list of reasons why I won't get the job, you're not supporting me. And every time you say that you're gonna buy salami and don't, you're not supporting me.
I'm sorry, Bobby. I'm sorry.
The good movies, good films, they reach in and they help you identify with your greatest needs, your greatest feelings, your greatest fears, your greatest longings. So it's in another character. Well, you've got a grid, right? So I'm watching this character, but my grid of my life is over it like this. So I'm seeing the character through my life and all the different parts of it. And so I felt like the challenge was to say, because you could take a topic. What's the topic of the message? Well, being wise with your finances. Okay. Well, I'd listen to that. Well, we didn't have to come up with a song with the name finances in it, right? Or do a video that was the latest about. What we had to do was, I felt like we needed to think, okay, wait a second. So what are people feeling about finances? Well, one of them is they're freaked out. They're freaked out because it's out of control, the credit card debt. And so what we would do in the arts was not to talk about finances. We would try to present and help them connect to, I'm freaked out and I don't have any control over this. What do I do? Because if I can help them own that and realize that is their reality, then it's like now they want to hear what you have to say. I think God did something really amazing. Is that I think he brought Steve and Dave and I together for a very specific reason. And we brought really different things to the table. So Steve has this powerful apostolic gift where he has a heart for reaching people of all nations, of all people types, and having them experience Christ and having the church grow and moving into that's his heart. It's move to people that don't know, right? And Dave's like that, but different, is more of an evangelist approach. He's like, I want everybody to come to know Jesus. But it's going to be right here, me and and Dave has this amazing teaching gift to go along with that.
Mark had a prophetic gift, which was, what is God saying? What mountain? Where are we going? What are we hearing from God? It was sort of a prophet's gift. And so those three together, it was a beautiful mix. It really worked, and we all understood our different roles, and we ran fast.
As our first 4 kids got older, we were able to experience those opportunities of singing together and being a part of this mission. We always brought our kids along on the mission, but then they really got a chance to be active participants in it. And as a mom, those are treasured memories for me. I think for me personally, there were artistic moments that I was a part of and artistic moments that I didn't play a part in, but I got to watch these people that I loved and was living life with create this beautiful moment through their craft.
To actually step out in obedience to what he's asking you to do when you're like, I don't know how in the heck this is going to happen. That's what he did on a weekly basis. I think probably my fondest memories are the times when our whole team was literally sweating bullets when we came in for a rehearsal that morning, because we knew that, whoa, this could go really bad. and then God would put it all together, and I can't tell you, I would say hundreds of times we'd be in the wings and we would just put our arms around each other. So I remember Keith and Sandy Callan, Steve Matar, Joe Armillo, Kristen Twilla, all these people, we would hug each other and tears would be coming down our face because we knew we couldn't do this. And he did it. I remember so many times we'd be in the back and go, oh my gosh, look what he did. I think what I learned is I'd heard that term from the story of Moses where God says, pick up the stick, and basically the whole concept of use what's in your hand. What I give you is enough. And Moses was like, I can't do this. There's no way I can go to Pharaoh, right? He's gonna kill me. And God basically said, use what's in your hand. And that became a war cry for us. And all of these values or these war cries were birthed out of experience. It was seeing God go, hey, you got what you need. I just think that's what's so exciting. And it's not a Kensington thing. This is a life thing. And I think more and more as we've gotten older, this is what God has done more. I thought when you got to be about 25, you figured out what you were gonna do for your career, you found a spouse, and you locked in and did it for the next 50 years. And you get those 2 decisions right. You get the right career, you get the right spouse, you're set. And one of the biggest surprises of life for me, and I think for you too, is that as we go through life, every day, God's like, hey, I got this idea. And it's bigger than me. And I don't want to do it. And I can't do it. And he's inviting me into that every day. Why? Because he wants to do something that's God-sized, not Mark-sized. He said, yeah, anybody can do that. I want you to do something that only I can do. And that's been our experience over and over and over, whether it's Kensington services or if it's our family. He's always, regularly, daily calling us into something that, without him, I can't do it. Everybody who's at Kensington now is on an adventure. And none of us, the adventure is Kensington. Kensington's not the adventure. It's Jesus that's the adventure. It's Jesus calling you and your unique created being that he made you into something in partnership with the Holy Spirit that could never be done by another person, never will be done by another person. That's our excitement for people, every person, that they would find within. Some of them, they're gonna have that adventure at Kensington. Some of them are not. And it doesn't matter. What matters is that we can get to a place where we can surrender with no agenda and say, God, have me.
Here's my life.
Here's my life. You lead me. I'll follow. Well, wait a minute. I can't afford that. I don't have the resources. I'm scared to death. I hate that. I'll follow. And when we do that, it's going to be amazing. It's going to be Kensington in 10,000 different alliterations. Kensington, as we knew it, it's already happened, and it will never happen again. So I hope nobody tries to duplicate that.
Right.
It's not supposed to be duplicated. That was for us. That was our adventure. What is going to happen in this next season is going to be more wonderful. It's going to be something that has never been done before, that is going to explode the kingdom, right? And so I just am excited to see. For everybody that's connected to the Kensington family in any way, there's unlimited potential and varieties of assignments that God is going to call people into.
You know, I love when Mark talks about just his heart for creating moments and the beauty that surrounds them. There are so many distractions in our world that are pulling at our attention. But yet this moment that he believes that we have the opportunity as followers of Christ, as a community in this church, to create moments for people to engage with God is so powerful if we were to embrace it. And I think that's a little bit of what we're learning today as we step into the scriptures, because at the heart of God, at the heart of creation, is a God who has instilled his creative beauty, his creative power, his creative DNA into us, and says we get to be a part of what he is doing in and through this world. I mean, even when you look at the very beginning of Scripture, where God hovers, his Spirit hovers over the formless, the empty, the dark, and he begins to speak. This is what it says in Genesis 1. In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. And now the earth was formless and empty. Darkness was over the surface of the deep. And the Spirit of God was hovering over the waters. See, God spoke out these words of let it be, let there be. Creation emerging out of what was formless and empty. Creation that was emerging and saying, this is where I'm placing my image. And as he created, he said it was good. But then as he created humanity, he said it was very good. There was something so unique about humanity because we were created in his image. And it says this in Genesis 2, verse 7. Then the Lord God formed a man from the dust of the ground and breathed into the nostrils the breath of life, and the man became a living being. While God spoke to creation, he breathed into humanity. See, if we are created in the image of God, then as human beings, we have been able to use his imagination and creativity and ingenuity to make and to create, because we have been created by the ultimate creator. And as I lean into just the story of Mark and how he kind of leads our arts community, but actually leads so much of what we are about as a church, it's this reminder, this concept that we have the ability to create. We are creatives. We are artists, all of us. Now, to be honest with you, I have really struggled with that idea personally. See, in my mind, I am not that. There's not in me this idea that I am this grand artist, this ability. Like Josh, he's an artist. Jen, she's an artist. Jen's children are artists, way more than I am. My daughter, Gabby, who's 7 years old, who just started taking piano, after 2 years of me taking piano, I can't even come close to what she's doing after 2 months. She's an artist, but I'm not an artist. But what's so interesting is so often we cling to our past and say, these past moments have defined us. See, in my past, I've been told I'm not a good artist by people. I've been told that my art doesn't do justice to whatever it is I'm drawing. That's my past of judgment that I've experienced. I don't know about you. But what's so interesting is often we can let our past determine our future. But in the beginning, if we go before the past, we go to the very beginning of what God is speaking into us, that in the beginning, he said, we are created in his image, and we have the ability to create. See, my past limited what my definition of an artist could look like or be like. But when I lean into the beginning, I recognize that God spoke his identity, his authenticity, his hope for my heart. And that moment can transform us when we start believing that. Now think about this. Has there ever been a moment, a conversation, this one moment that happened that kind of broke some of your past, some of your beliefs that have limited you? I love this quote by Erwin McManus. And part of the reason why I love this quote is because this interaction I had with him and his brother, they sparked something inside of me. And here's what Erwin said. Creativity should be an everyday experience. He said creativity should be as common as breathing. We breathe, therefore we create. We breathe, therefore we create. And because we are creating, we are artists. It is instilled in us. And I hope you have been created to create, to have an impact, to create moments for people to experience a God who loves them and loves you. And there are so many spaces in which you are creating today. Now, you may look at those moments and say, I don't have permission to create. I don't feel like I have the ability to create, but there's something that can spark a change inside of us. For me, it comes down to this notebook. See, I got this notebook. It's kind of this unique notebook. The front of it says an artist's notebook, which when I got it, when I received this at this conference I was a part of with Erwin and Alex, I didn't think I deserved to actually hold it or utilize it because I'm not an artist. I was letting my past define me. But what was so interesting about this blank page, it was like this canvas that I was able to create on, to share on. And it was really hard because I'm used to lines, right? Like, I don't know if some of you are like that. Like, you're like, I follow the rules. I stay within the lines. That's how I was always writing. You write top to bottom. You follow the rules of the booklet. And they also had no pens at this conference. They only had colored pencils, which I was like, what am I going to do with these? But it was this notebook that sparked something in me. It was so small, yet so significant. It was a moment that was created that caused a move in my heart, to realize that God is instilling his creativity into you and me. And so I began to write in different ways, and it began to spark something in me that there could be something more possible in my heart. And the question that I have for you, and why I show you that, is that you may have a title of a father, mother, spouse, brother, sister, lawyer, doctor, whatever it is. You may have those titles, but in the end of it, you have a canvas to create on. What is your canvas? See, your canvas may look different than mine, but your canvas is something that God has instilled within you to create. See, what happens is when we create moments that can cause a move in the hearts of ourselves and our community, there's something that happens that catalyzes a momentum of change, of transformation that can actually reach generations. And the beauty of those moments is they always start with somebody embracing their canvas. What is your canvas? What is the canvas that God has placed before you that maybe you've even pushed off the side? He's going, you are creative here. You are not just defined by those labels. Because here's something powerful if you embrace this idea that you have creativity instilled within you. That your canvas, right, your creativity is unleashed within your context and on your canvas. So what canvas are you creating with? Regardless of the labels, what canvas are you allowing God to move in your heart? You're responding to him, and you're taking the risk, because creativity requires a risk. We don't just step out and say, we're going to just do this, and it's just going to go great. We step out with this risk, this intentional pursuit of what God could do in us and through us, and see where the beauty that he has put inside of us, the beauty of the relationship that we have with him, would unlock something transformative for generations. For me, as I lean into my titles, my labels as a father, as a brother, as a son, I realize that the canvas that has been given to me, one is my family, one is my neighborhood, one is the team that I lead. Those are the canvases. One are the friends that I have, that I get to invite them to experience the hope of a God who loves me, but also loves them. And every single time I step out and use my gifts and use the canvas that God has given me and the gifts and talents that I have, and I embrace that artistic ability that has been instilled deep within my heart, it releases something so powerful. And when I see our community do that, you see these generations of change, these generations of transformation happening. We wanted to take a moment and kind of connect a story that because of what Mark and the artistic team created in a moment in the services and instilled through our community, there began this generational change that has been having an impact even through this pandemic and what God has been doing in and through the community. This is what happens when we embrace the canvas that has been placed before us. So as you watch this video, my encouragement is to lean into this question of what are the moments and the canvas that God is inviting you to embrace, and maybe even begin to dream, what could he do with it if we stepped out in obedience, in risk, and discovered all that God has for us. So as we lean into this story, have that question kind of in your mind.
I was a student in the very first class of the Kensington School of Arts back in probably 1997. Through the School of Arts and with Mark Nelson being one of my mentors, I started to kind of see this bigger vision for what these passions that I had for music. One of the foundations of the School of Arts was that you're a child of God, that you're loved by him, and anything that you create should come out of that. So after I graduated college with my music degree and I got married, we ended up here at Kensington again. And I started out as a music teacher for a program that was called New Community Kids at the time. We met on Wednesdays, and it was this arts program where we would coach the kids over the course of like 12 weeks. And then over time, Mark Nelson, who was directing it, ended up having to take on another role and was looking for a director. And so I stepped into that role. Opportunities started to unfold for us to expand and grow to other locations, other campuses at Kensington. And the real turning point was when the schools came to us and said, hey, we're really in need of some supportive arts programs. Could you help us? And we thought, okay, let's replicate what we do. Let's try it out. So we kind of went all in on this vision that we felt God gave us, and we changed the name officially to Kaleo, and it means to invite.
Everybody has been familiar with the Kaleo program. It had been around before our partnership with them. But at a point, we just saw the need really to invite our school partners' kids into this beautiful program. We took a risk. Renee took a risk in saying, yes, this is important. And so we have had this beautiful relationship with our school partners where we have kids from the campus and kids from our schools who are doing Kaleo Kids Together. And actually we've had, at one point, up to 4 schools that were hosting the Kaleo program. And so our schools were really welcoming in having the campus kids and their kids working together.
We were really nervous the first time we went in, mostly because these kids really hadn't done anything like this before. And, we come in with our, loud music and we're getting them moving, and we're not hard on them, but we do challenge them and we keep them, on their toes the whole time. And we didn't really know if they would love it or what they would think. But by the end of the session, to watch these kids come in literally asking, like, what is a dance class? Are we gonna wear tutus and ballet shoes? In the end, learning an entire piece and going up in front of their whole school and confidently dancing and feeling proud of what they did. It was such like a joyful thing for everybody. Even the teachers just were shocked to see some of their kids up there leading. We wanted them to have a bigger vision that when you know who you are, which we believe you are a child of God, and we really wanted kids to understand that. So it's really fun because the arts kind of can open up something in a child that might not show in other ways. And so when you have this team of people that love God and they're listening to God in the moments to say, hey, what can I do to help reach or connect with this kid? It really becomes this amazing opportunity for God to create something that we would not have seen otherwise.
We actually hosted a songwriters workshops for 2 of our schools for 4th and 5th graders. And the song lyrics that came out of those sessions were truly amazing. I mean, themes about beauty and our differences. We're stronger together. There's color in our emotions. I mean, just really big feeling and topics for kids in 4th and 5th grade. And they were just amazing. The kids loved it. Whenever we'd come in, they'd say, when are the music people coming back, But it gave voice. It gave them a way to express their feelings, their ideas, their thoughts, their voice.
Our dream would be that we would be able to expand in these schools, offer more programs to the kids there. We get asked by teachers all the time, can we take on more students or, move on to this school? But really, it's the relationship piece that we're really passionate about. And so I think that would be the dream.
Renee's passion, not only for the arts, but for the kids and bringing kids and people together, is just, it's contagious. Her joy and her love for this is truly contagious.
We had a student a while back who had been in our program for years, and it was his 5th grade year that he actually auditioned and received one of our lead roles. And he hadn't really had one before. And it was kind of one of those risks as a director and as the teachers. We were like, I think he's ready for this. Let's give it a go. We all felt, that this was his time. And he really did an incredible job. And the cool part of the story is the mom came back to us later and said that this was such an important mark for her son, who had Asperger's, which we didn't even know, and was really struggling, and had entered into the school one day to volunteer. And the lady at the front desk said, hey, you should go in the cafeteria. He's up there doing announcements for everybody right now. And she was just completely blown away that he had come, so far, and just his confidence and his just, even just to be himself among his peers. Before the pandemic, we had about 6 locations in different schools and at different campuses, and we're reaching about 300 kids at the time. And now, since the pandemic, we've had to really adjust and kind of recalibrate our program and pivot what we do. And so we've just been really creative and, try to have some fun with the limitations. And we've done some crazy things. We've done Clio Prize Week, where we put these YouTube videos out. And at the beginning of the pandemic, we did them every day, where kids could go and learn a skill and submit something that they create after it. And we would draw names and send prizes to kids. And we sent tons of ukuleles out to students and gave them free lessons on YouTube, which was a fun way for them to look back and say, hey, I learned a new skill over my quarantine. We also decided to move our programs outside this fall, which was really crazy. We are not outdoorsy people, but we made it happen. And we had the kids meeting outside. We found creative ways to space them out and do their dancing and their drama. They didn't really miss any part of the Clio magic this year. Somehow we were able to do it. And we filmed all their pieces. So we would film their performances and put together a big show. I want the students to know how loved they are by God, how special and unique they are. They don't have to prove themselves to anyone, and that there's a beautiful future for them. And when they trust God and they just continue following Him, they're going to experience that joy, and they're going to overcome trials, and they're going to really shine in their uniqueness.
Renee and her team do such a wonderful job pouring into our young students, training them to be powerful leaders, not only within Kensington, but as you heard, out into the community, into our schools. I was here in the very beginning when Mark had the School of the Arts, and he had a vision for children. And I remember him saying this, that they're not just cute kids, that they are powerful leaders for God's kingdom. And Renee has taken that and just moved that into our community, training kids and letting them know how deeply they are loved by Christ. I can't help but hear that story and then come to a scripture in Matthew 18, one of my favorite ones about children. It says this, at the time, Jesus' disciples came to him and asked him this question, who is the greatest in the kingdom of heaven? He called a child among them and imagine he put him in his lap. And then he says this, truly I tell you, unless you change and become like little children, you will never enter the kingdom of heaven. Whoever becomes humble like this child is the greatest in the kingdom of heaven, and whoever welcomes one such child in my name welcomes me. This kind of work that Renee is doing is pouring into the next generation and giving them confidence and vision to go out and change the world in Jesus' name. This is what we're about at Kensington. And so as we head into the new year, as this year's coming to a close, I would ask you this. Would you pray and consider giving a year-end gift to Kensington? It's these Christmas gifts that you give that actually fuels these kind of ministries all year long. I'm so grateful that we can see this and be a part of it. Thank you so much for your generosity. I can't wait to see what God's going to do in 2021.
You know, it's so beautiful as you hear the story and you listen to the sequence where Mark had this vision to create moments to engage people with the heart of God, and that believing it would move them. And then you see the story of Renee, where she's embraced that, she's experienced that move in her own heart, and now she is creating moments for the next generation beyond the four walls of the church to continue to have an impact. This is where you see Renee using the very canvas that she has been given and believing that God can step into that moment in her step of obedience and her step of faith and see what God could do. And you see where the partnerships start to come together and that we all create this momentum of change, this momentum of believing in this story that the next generation will continue to bring the creativity, continue to bring those moments for people to experience all that God has for them and all that God has for their families and for the greater community. It's absolutely stunning to me every single time where we see these stories and you see how God has moved in people. You know, for me, one of the most unique stories that I got to hear later in life was about my wife, Jenny. See, Jenny, when she was 11 years old, she lives over an hour away from Kensington. And because of the creativity that was happening in Kensington at Christmas, a family member and friend of hers decided to drive an entire group of 11-year-olds down to Kensington to experience Christmas together, to experience that moment, to experience what all would happen. And because of that one experience, those moments that were creativity was sparked in even another city. And a movement was sparked even in another city to continue to create moments for many to experience the very heart of God. This is what we're a part of. And this is what I love as we're sharing these year-end Christmas videos where we're telling you these are the stories that you are a part of when you give. These are the stories you're a part of when you're in this community. And so one of the things that we have for you online, especially at kensingtonchurch.org/gift, is our brochure. This is our Kensington year-end Christmas gift brochure. And what it is more than just saying, this is the ways that you can give, but this is the impact that is happening as a result of your giving. You know, I was meeting with a student yesterday, and we were talking about what God does in our lives. And there was this one page here that talks about short-term trips. See, I was telling this student, I remember the short-term trip that I took that transformed my eyes when I was a part of Edge as a high school student, and what God did in me and how he expanded this moment that was created that just catalyzed an entire shift in my very heart. I think of the story of South Sudan with Reuben. Like Reuben's story is a part of our community, Birmingham. His connection to us is foundational. When we give to the year-end Christmas gift, we get to be a part of Reuben's story even more so. And there's so many different ways that you can see what God is doing. This is what we wanted to share with you of what happens when you give. God does some incredible things in and through our community, both locally and globally. And so we invite you to do that. We invite you to consider what a year-end Christmas gift will look like and continue to partner with us as we step into these stories over and over again, that we as a church get to be the church beyond just the walls. It is so powerful, the story that is unfolding. But it always comes back to the question. There's a question that God can create moments in our hearts, and he's instilled his creativity deep within inside of our souls. It is in our very being. And as God is doing that, maybe there's been something that you've been holding back on. Maybe there's something, the canvas that is before you that you have denied, that you haven't stepped into, that you haven't embraced. But maybe today you're feeling this moment of God. Would you inspire me, encourage me to step into this moment differently, to experience what you might have for me in a way that would transform my heart and transform my community? What is the canvas that you have for me, and how can I step in obedience? So as our team plays this next song and leads us in this moment of worship, maybe that is the prayer. This song is the prayer of your heart as we lean in together.
unspoken. All nature and science follow the sound of your voice. And as you speak, 100 billion creatures catch your breath, evolving in pursuit of what you said. Your feet all reveals your nature so alive. I can see your heart in everything you say. Every painted sky is a canvas of yours. If creation still obeys you so alive, so alive, so if the stars were made to worship so high, if the mountains bow in reverence so alive, if the oceans roar your greatness so alive, for if everything exists and lifts you high, so alive. If the wind goes where he sent it, so alive. If the rocks cry out in silence, so alive. If the sun of all our praise still falls shine, then we'll sing again 100 billion times. God of salvation, you chased down my heart through all of my failure and pride. On a hill you created, the light of the world, abandoned in darkness to die. And as you speak, 100 billion failings disappear. When you lost your life so I could find it here. If you left the grave behind you so alive, I can see your heart, everything you've done. Every part designed in a work of art called love. If you gladly chose surrender so alive, I can see your heart in a billion different ways. Every precious one, a child who died to save. If you gave your life to love them so alive, like you would again 100 billion times. But what measure could amount to your desire? You're the one who never leaves the one behind.
What a beautiful morning as we hear about creativity and as people who serve the Creator, the most creative one in the universe. How amazing is it that we're called today to unleash our creativity in our context on the canvas He has given us. We're so thankful that you're here today with us. We just want you to know that if you need prayer or you need connection this week, our team and our staff are here to serve you and to connect with you. This is week 1. This is the first week of our foundation series. And over the next 2 weeks, you're going to be hearing from Dave Wilson and Steve Andrews on what it means to serve Jesus. And so we hope that you'll be with us. We love you, we care for you, and we can't wait to see you this week online or in person. Have a great week.